Am I the asshole for telling my sister she can't move in with me after getting pregnant? Throwaway account. So, this all started when my younger sister, 22F, announced she was pregnant. The father of the baby is her ex, who left her as soon as she told him. She moved back in with our parents for a while but wanted to move out because she felt they were being too controlling. They told her she needed a job and a plan for raising the baby, which she found stressful and unfair. She came to me, 28M, asking if she could move in because she needed space and a supportive environment. Thing is, I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment and I work from home. I told her I don't think it would be a good idea since I need peace and quiet for my job, and honestly, I'm not ready to have a newborn around. When I told her no, she exploded, saying I was abandoning her and the baby, that I was privileged because I have my own place and she doesn't. She called me selfish and accused me of caring more about my precious job than my family. Now our parents are also mad at me, saying it's just temporary and that I'm the only sibling with the means to help her. So, am I the asshole for not letting her move in? Stories number 2. My cat Merlin stayed at my dad's house for 2 weeks while I went on vacation. My dad used to hate cats. He sent me updates every day. At first, he said he thinks Merlin just tolerates him. Within a week, I got a message asking, does Merlin typically wake you in the middle of the night for pets? He was taking Merlin to the park or outside on his harness every day. Merlin does not like little kids and only has one eye. The two are not related, but Dad made up a story to the neighbor that they were to ensure the neighbor wouldn't let her small grandkids out to chase Merlin. I told him to change the litter box once daily, but he changed it twice a day because he felt it wasn't fresh enough. We brought his cat tree, but Dad took it upon himself to buy Merlin a second cat tree and placed it by the dining room window. He sent me pictures of Merlin jumping from the dining table to his new tree. He said it was very cute and then laughed. When I came to pick him up, we were standing by his new tree, and Merlin jumped on the table, immediately trotted over to Dad and started batting at his hand for pets. Originally, we were going to leave the second tree at Dad's house so Merlin could have a place to lay when we brought him for visits, but Dad changed his mind and insisted we take it because Merlin spent so much time on it and he can really stretch out on this one. On yours, he has to curl up. It's more comfortable, and he uses the scratching posts on it too. We brought plenty of food and treats, but I found out Dad gave him a shit ton of treats and went out and bought him more. Also looked at cat food because he discovered Merlin has a preference for certain brands, the expensive kind. He was amazed at how many flavors of wet treats there are. Before we left, he told me watching Merlin was more enjoyable than taking care of the poodle we used to have, and didn't mind that Merlin got a little messy at times. After we got home, I got another message from Dad saying it felt strange without him. The next day, while walking Merlin, I sent a picture saying, "Look who finally got brave enough to cross the street with me on his leash," and Dad proudly said, "Think he learned that here." To explore the other side stories. Number 3. Am I the asshole H for not going back to my wife after she threatened to call the cops on me? My wife and I have a 6-month-old, and since she came back from the hospital, she completely changed. Before that, we were the perfect couple. Never once argued, had a happy life. Her hatred for me was radiated from her every time I was with her. I am not someone who likes to argue, and after tolerating a lot, 2 days ago I snapped. We had a very heated argument that resulted in a screaming match. That's when she threatened to call the cops on me. I was just shell-shocked, and she kept screaming and shouting. When she had enough, she went to another room. I grabbed whatever I could think of and left. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go back. I hate my life. I lost everything. She wants me to come back and talk. I am not going back, ever. My MIL came to me with my baby, and I refused to hold her because if I knew if I did that, I will want to go back. And then my wife will call cops on me. My MIL wants me to just talk things out. She's making excuses for my wife. She is saying she never meant what she said. I am staying with my friend. He is supportive of me, 100%, but he is saying that I am not being myself. I am a little depressed because of all this, but I am not crazy. Even my MIL acknowledged that my wife did threaten to call the cops on me. There is no coming back from that, is there? Update. 24 days later, I did talk to her on the phone, and she can't seem to comprehend why I was so upset that she threatened to call the cops on me. It was like she couldn't wrap her head around the gravity of what she has done. She did apologize, but she still thinks I overreacted. As soon as I left, my eating disorder vanished. Then when I talked to her on the phone, the depression started settling again. I have filed for divorce. I have no clue what the divorce will look like. But one thing I know is that I will never feel safe with my wife again. ever. Divorce is the right thing to do for both of us. Stories number 4. Am I the asshole? For walking out on a blind date, my friend set up 2 weeks after my husband died. Advice needed. I just really need some clarity on this situation. I 23 lost my husband 25 weeks ago to a car accident. He was the love of my life, and I'm still not used to waking up without him every day. We have big plans for our future, and it all came crashing down in a heartbeat. We met on his uncle's farm. He was a farmhand, and it was loving as first sight for me. I'm also 4 months pregnant, but I haven't told anyone. I was planning on telling my friend when I was feeling better. My best friend Lee 24F has been my shoulder to cry on during this time. She helped me with his funeral and anything else I needed, as I'm NC with my bio family story for another time. She is currently dating Barry 24M. They usually hang out in a trio with Liam 24M. When I first met Liam, he hit on me hard, tried everything. As in would try and compare himself with my husband, say weird things like, our kids would be cuter than if you had kids with my husband. He's also made weird comments like I need a city boy and would motion himself when I'm a country girl through and through. I typically would shut him down or ignore him, but I would always get dirty looks from Barry. Skip to Sunday night. I got a message from Lee begging me to come to dinner with her because she wanted to treat me as I had been through a lot in the last couple of weeks. Feeling not so shit about myself, I decided to go. When I arrived, she wasn't there, so I texted her asking how long she would be, and she told me 5 mins. She's just running late and is around the corners. So Aita sat down and ordered a drink. Now 5 mins comes and she's still not there, so I gave her the benefit of the doubt and waited another 5 when I'm about to call her. Liam comes rushing over and gives his apologies for being late. I asked him what's he doing here because I'm waiting for Lee and it was a 2-chair table. He smiles at me and grabs my hand. I ripped it off of him. And he just says, oh, I asked Lee to set us up. Now that husband's name isn't a problem. We can finally get to know each other. He looked so cringe. And I'm telling you, I was floored. I stood up and told him that I wasn't interested, and I certainly don't give a flying fuck about getting to know him. And that I just lost my husband without a word of a lie. This man stands up and said, I know you're being overly emotional right now, so we'll forgive you for that. Sit down with me. I'm not saying we have to have sex straight away, or anything. I was disgusted, shoved past him and went home as fast as I could. When I did get home, Lee messaged me, Sue, how was dinner with a smirk emoji? I called her, and when she answered, I didn't let her get a word in. I yelled at her, asked her how she has the audacity to do something like this weeks after I'd just lost my husband, when Shu's been the one to hold me together. This whole time I asked her what fucking game was she playing, and that the only reason I wanted to meet tonight with her was to tell her I'm pregnant. I just hung up on her and texted her, I need time and don't want to be contacted by her for the time being. Last night Barry came to my house and asked to talk. I said no, and that if he didn't leave I'd call the police. He told me that I broke Lee's heart and that I deeply hurt Liam, when now is an even better time to get to know Liam, because he could raise my child with me. I opened my door, which Barry took as I wanted to talk. Instead, I hit him with my shoes and chased him to his car, screaming. I'm actually embarrassed I did that. All day today, I'm being flooded with messages from friends and the trio themselves, shaming me for pushing the people who care about me the most away, and that they don't even recognize the person I've become. The only thing that hurts me most is that my husband would know what to do. He would tell me how to fix it, and now I have no one who I can talk to. I'm just so numb inside. I have a therapy appointment tomorrow, but I'm thinking of calling my husband's mom, even though we've barely spoken since the funeral. Any advice is appreciated. Please exude any typos. I'm just so exhausted. Edit. I made a new account for this post as some friends have my main and ID, rather have some time to grasp this whole thing before I answer anyone personally. Thank you. Stories number 5. Running joke between me and the neighborhood kids. Humor. When I was a teenager, my dad insisted I stay home one Halloween because he was going out of town and didn't want my mom opening the door for lots of strangers by herself at night. I was royally pissed at first. I couldn't appreciate how significant passing out candy to the trick-or-treaters was to my mom at an age where Halloween just meant parties. As a passive resistance to the situation, I was determined to make it fun for myself and not for anyone else. I taped a couple long rectangular sheets of white butcher paper to either side of me and said I was a stick of gum. I only gave out plain chewing/breath gum. By the end of the night, I totally understood why my mom enjoyed passing out candy so much. The budding start of my career in education, haha. And I felt terrible about the stunt. The next year, I dressed up in a regular costume with plenty of candy. The kids were upset. They said, I thought you'd do something weird again like the gum thing. So the next year, I got an orange shirt and some orange face paint and said I was orange. I handed out oranges. Simpler times, you didn't have to give only pre-wrapped items. My mom got in on the fun by only giving out candy with orange wrappers even. Now it's a running joke in the neighborhood. And a bit of a mythos for kids born later than I started doing this, that my house always has a quirky surprise. One year I dressed as a crayon and gave out packs of crayons. One year I was a doctor and gave out band-aids, etc. This year I found a ranch dressing bottle costume at Walmart. I'm gonna give out food court-style packets of ranch. I cherish these little insider moments with the kids in my community. Stories number 6. Am I the asshole? For refusing to go to confession so I can take communion in my brother's wedding? I, 31F, have 3 siblings, 40M, 38F, 27M, and we have a good relationship despite the age gaps between some of us. My older siblings are both married and so am I. The wedding in question is my younger brother's. My younger brother Luke is engaged to his GF of a year, Emma, 28F. She is nice, I guess, but we have never really clicked and are just polite to each other. Something important is that we are all Catholic, but not really hardcore ones, and some of us are even lapsed. I do believe this whole situation started just when I met her for the first time. I look younger than Luke, and it has always been a sibling joke that I am truly the baby of the family. Most people that meet us assume he is older than me, but nobody has had issues with it until Emma. The day I met her, she kind of scoffed when I said I was happy the baby had a proper girlfriend. She has this weird thing about being the eldest in her family and refused to believe I was older than her until I showed her my ID. She has been hot and cold with me since then, often infantilizing me or trying to have a sort of boss attitude. I just let her be and usually ignore her since I have no time to try and beg for her friendship, so I am just polite and civil. Always include her when planning stuff, but don't really make an effort. The family knows about it, but we just shrugged it to different personalities. Then the wedding planning started. Emma decided I could not be in the wedding party since I was not married in a church. Fine by me. Then she requested that immediate family submits their dress planning so she could check it fits the wedding dress code. Fine, whatever. You see where this is going? I hope. You'll see I have not gone to confession or have communion in more than a decade. If I go to a mass for whatever reason, I am respectful and simply sit or stay standing during the rites I don't participate on. Well, this is not good enough for her, and she says I need to take communion during their wedding. I said no, and she has not taken it well. For the most part I avoid her, as I said before, but this time I wasn't going to say yes or risk an issue. I told her for taking communion one needs to go to confession, and I didn't want to. She said all immediate family is doing it, and it will look bad if I don't. I told her sure, fine, then I'll just go have communion in front of everybody, but won't do confession. She said if this was going to be my attitude, I was uninvited from the wedding because I clearly wanted to ruin the day for her. I turned to my brother and told him thanks, gave him a thumbs up, and went home. My family understand my reasoning and said they respect everybody's choices, but I shouldn't have said what I said. I told them I really don't want to go to the wedding anymore, and I don't owe Emma explanations on my life. I only called my grandma because she heard what happened and asked me not to disrespect the church by doing the communion without confession. I promised I wouldn't do it, and she is fine with me now. I got a text from my brother wanting to compromise, so I replied by asking if the other lapsed people are being made to take confession too. He said no, because it was only nuclear family members. I find it funny since all the others are clearly older than her and she just behaves like this with me and the youngsters. Am I the asshole? Update. 1 day later. Things have moved, but I wouldn't call any of this a positive progress. I would like to clear something I kept seeing in the comments. I won't request a special blessing or go in the queue for communion. It isn't about the blessing or the compromise, but the singling me out. I often just stay quiet or take a general family blessing if we go to weddings, etc. I have no issue with compromises. I have an issue with Emma and her ridiculousness. I don't know why she has this thing with me. I do look young, but not like a teen or a child, obviously. She has 2 younger sisters and is very authoritative with them. I have witnesses her being very my way or the highway with younger people, so she has issues for sure. The confrontation from the last post was on Tuesday, and today we had lunch at my grandma's. I think you should also know that my brothers have a tricky relationship, as in they are not as close with each other as they are with other siblings. My older brother Robert, is very no-nonsense, and he has never been a fan of Emma, but he didn't think he should have to intervene because Luke is an adult and capable of navigating relationships. All this is going to be relevant, I promise. We visit Grandma a lot since she lives by herself, and we truly enjoy her company. Today we were all there because she is over this drama already. After a lunch that was more like snacking, to be honest, she asked us all to clear the air. Emma continued with her rant about me being a disrespectful person and that she was asking the bare minimum from me. My grandma asked her why she had no issue with her not taking communion, and Emma said that she was her elder and for sure her reasons were more than a tantrum like it was in my case. She also repeated that she was asking this of all the siblings and I was the only one that was being difficult with her tiny request. This is where everything crumbled for her. I mentioned in the comments that Robert is also lapsed, and he was already exhausted by this situation. He asked her why she had no issues with him not taking communion, and she looked like a kid that was caught. She didn't have a proper answer. Robert then asked her if she even knew why he and Grandma became lapsed. She shook her head and looked at Luke for help. Luke, on the other hand, was staring angrily at Robert and I, but said nothing. Robert explained to Emma he was the reason Grandma became lapsed. When Robert was a teen, he came out as gay and was so worried about our grandparents' reaction since they were very active in the Catholic Church. Grandma felt awful about it, and even worse when she went and spoke about this with the then priest of her church. That priest was super old school and told her that Robert was committing sins, he was going to hell. He needed to find his way, the whole 9 yards. Grandma didn't take that so well and simply stopped going to church and started spending that time with her grandchildren. Over the years, she started getting into the whole community again, but she decided she was done taking the sacraments. She respects parts of the church, but can't fully reconcile with it. Emma was a bit confused since Robert is married to a woman and he explained he is bisexual and ended up with a woman just as he could have ended with a man. He also commented they are not married in the church, but that didn't matter to her, like it mattered when it came to me. He asked her directly what was her problem with me. Long story short, she said I was rude since the beginning and kept treating Luke wrong. Oh, and I also was very snarky about looking younger than her. Crickets. She is a beautiful, successful woman, so I still don't understand her obsession, but it seems like she wants people to see I respect her and what she says. I just started laughing. She started crying and saying I turned my grandma against her. My grandma told her to stop blaming people for her being a negative person, and she was always going to side with me over her. Luke got upset at that and asked her why she was not supporting him, and she simply said she doesn't support him being a lapdog for a crazy woman. More was said, nothing got truly resolved. I was kind of invited again but declined going. Grandma is undecided if she even wants to go at all. My older siblings told Luke they will go to the ceremony if he seeks couples therapy, or at least therapy. My parents are having headaches and now dislike Emma so much they can't hide it. Oh, and yes, Grandma spoke with the priest, and he wants them to do extra premarital counseling or he won't officiate. I hope they don't get married, but he is old enough to derail his life if he wants. I thank you for letting me vent, and my grandma loved the Pope joke. My brother has gone too far, and I decided to be done with him. He made our grandma cry and I think permanently damaged a lot of his relationships. I want to mention some of my cousins and other family members thought I was just stubborn and creating drama, but now there is no longer my side or Emma's side. Maybe he always felt this way, but the issue he has with Robert is absolutely ridiculous. He was so upset with what Grandma said about him being Emma's lapdog that he called her to speak about it. I was obviously not present for the conversation, but Grandma told me what happened, and Luke confirmed it. He told her that it was unfair of me to ask Robert for help since he was her favorite grandchild, and would get her to side with me, no matter how wrong I was. He also told her that many of the cousins believe this, and that it was so obvious since she even left her religion for him. He claimed the other LGBTQ+ members of the family, most were not even born when Robert came out by the way, doubted if she would do it for them. So Grandma explained to Luke and then call every single one of her grandchildren to ask them how they felt and explain to each a part we didn't know. She said that when Robert came out and she spoke with the old priest, he hinted about knowing of places to set Robert straight. Grandma had heard horror stories from this place, and so had Robert, and they both spoke with my parents together about that not being an option at all. My parents never intended to send Robert there and are very casual Catholics, but Grandma wanted to cover the basis just in case. I was told Grandma sounded like she had been crying on the phone. And after the first couple of calls, which went from oldest to youngest, the group chat started to blow. Robert is livid. Our LGBTQ+ cousins are livid and say Luke lied. Even the cousins that were telling me to stop being a stubborn head are livid. By the time I was up for my call, I was already on the way to Grandma's. 2 of my cousins were already there, and the youngest one, Sarah, 16F, was ready to literally fight Luke. For a bit of levity, Sarah is about 35 centimeters smaller than Luke, and the image of her swinging at him made me laugh a bit. She asked if I was making fun of her, and I just explained the whole mental image of her trying to hit him, and she admitted it was kind of funny. What I didn't tell her is I would love to slap some sense into Luke. My grandma has been through so much in her life, and this is not what we want for her. She looks puffy-faced and kept asking everybody if they truly felt unloved by her, saying she would do everything for any of us. Explaining how Robert was the oldest grandchild, but that didn't mean she loved the rest any less. She is a strong woman, but I think something inside her broke a little with the thought she hurt her grandchildren. It was a shit show, a big one, and I was just so done with Luke. My parents have been passive towards the situation so far because I asked them to, but after they heard what happened, they told him they need time away from him. Robert is simply disgusted and decided to not speak with him anymore, which he communicated through the cousin group chat, with Luke's response being that this is why Emma's help on reigning all us would be so beneficial if we just let her. He also added how Robert never cared for him or anybody really, and he just tried to be the center of attention all the time. He cited his coming out, his announcement he was going to marry a woman, the birth of his child. It was ridiculous. He came out when Luke was a toddler, and for many years only our parents and grandparents knew. He announced he was going to marry his now wife through a text, but didn't interfere or took from anybody. His child was born 4 months before Luke's graduation, and apparently that was a big issue for Luke that he never commented. Maybe I am biased, maybe I am selfish like Emma claims, but I call bullshit on his tantrum. Every single one of the cousins has been helped, babysat, tutored, gotten out of trouble, you name it, by Robert. He isn't perfect, but he isn't the conniving ass Luke is claiming. Maybe Luke has always felt inadequate and we didn't notice. Maybe it was his last-ditch effort. Maybe Emma has manipulated him so far that he can't come back. It doesn't matter anymore. If he does marry Emma, I wish him the best. If he doesn't, I hope he goes to therapy. Regardless of what he decides, he burned so many bridges and hurt so many people. I don't see this resolving anytime soon. For now, I will focus on my grandma and making her feel better. I feel extremely guilty because it was Emma's situation with me that opened this can of worms. I know I shouldn't, but it's hard not to. Stories number 7. Going to invite unwanted guests to our wedding after we already said no? Watch this. This was a few years back, but still a goodie. I wasn't on speaking terms with one of my brothers, and for good reason. He tried to start a fistfight with my now husband, and his wife threatened to shoot me. At the time we were engaged, and I made it clear to both my brother and the rest of the family he wasn't invited to the wedding. However, my mother took it upon herself to reach out and say she talked with him, and he and his wife promised to behave. I reminded her he was absolutely not invited. She had no right to do that, and she needed to call him back and make that known. Her response? But he's your brother. And to think of the family. To make matters worse, we were receiving a lot of pressure to pay for an open bar, and we don't even drink ourselves, as well as pay for a bigger venue, even though we wanted a small and more intimate wedding. Where was this pressure coming from? Why none other than my alcoholic mother, who wanted to invite a bunch of relatives I've never met and take advantage of an open bar. Now here comes the fun part. I was at my wit's end with all this family drama. So one Monday evening, a couple months before the wedding, the following conversation took place. What are you doing tomorrow? Me. Hanging out with you. Why? Now husband. Want to get married? Me. Are you serious? Hell yeah. Now husband. And we did. We eloped with just us and a couple of friends that offered to officiate the wedding that Tuesday evening. We saved thousands upon thousands of dollars, didn't have to deal with all the drama, and had our small and intimate wedding that we wanted. Honestly, I wish we had done this to begin with. However, my mother lost her shit. Posted all over FB, seeking pity about not being at her daughter's wedding and how could I do that to her, etc., etc. Funny how she didn't mention any of the above details in her post and made it all about her wants and woe is me. Even more funny is we would have had the wedding if she would have respected our decisions. So no, you don't get to invite unwanted guests, make demands, or get to go to our wedding. Stories number 8. Am I the asshole for saying my niece would ruin my birthday trip? My 18M parents are taking me to Ireland for my birthday for 4 nights, and my sister and her daughter too are staying at home because neither me or my parents want them going with us. My sister for some reason suggested her going with us, and my mother said no, and I also said no, and she asked, and I was like, why would I want my niece there? And she said it would be fun, and I just said she would ruin the whole trip. She knows no one would want her or her daughter there, so I don't know why she even suggested it, lol. And then she called me rude for telling the truth. Stories number 9. Is it really so bad to lie to your wife? Sometimes you need to lie. My wife lifted her shirt and showed me the scaly rash engulfing her stomach. Do I need to go to acute care? No matter what, I couldn't let her go to the hospital. They probably just changed the laundry detergent ingredients. You'll be fine, babe, I lied. You sure? This morning it was barely pink. If tomorrow it's worse, I'll take you to acute care. I'm sure it's nothing. Besides, I have a surprise for you. I led her to the basement where I'd set up her Nintendo Switch on the big screen. I'd lit every candle I could find for mood lighting. There was a bowl of her favorite seltzers on ice, just what I could get from the fridge. I couldn't go to the store. They were all closed. What's all this? She asked. I turned the TV on and revealed the home screen of Stardew Valley. Thank God she had the cartridge. I had already trashed the Wi-Fi router. I want to watch you play. She laughed. What? You hate this game? I never said I hate it. You did. I did. No, I lied. I said it wasn't for me. You need to finish the community center. I know you've been so busy at work. Why don't you finish it tonight? I want to watch it. That might take a few hours. Awesome. I'm excited. Stardew Valley was my wife's favorite game in the world. She played for 2 hours before she asked if I'd seen her phone. No matter what, I couldn't let her use her phone. I'm really sorry, babe. I broke your phone. What? I lost mine, so I was using yours and I broke it. I promise I'll get us new ones in the morning. She wanted to be mad, but I made a peace offering. I brought her the bottle of wine I was saving for our anniversary. We laughed, drank. She finished the community center. The wine caught up. As she laid down, she told me she felt weak. That's just the wine, I lied. I brought you a glass of water, with the crushed ice in your favorite cup and the straw you like. I told her, you are my entire world, I love you. That was the truth. She said she loved me too. No matter what, I couldn't let her know. If she had left the house, used her phone, she would have seen the warnings they released today. The head of the CDC called it a world killer. Some mutation of a mutation of oh my God. The incubation period was 6 months. 6 horrible months where the virus was extremely contagious, airborne, and asymptomatic. They estimated 96% of the world was already infected. After 6 months, a rash appeared on your stomach. Then it got worse. Then within 24 hours your brain swelled, and you died. My wife will be dead by morning. She deserved one last nice night. I kissed her fevered forehead. Stories number 10. Am I the asshole if I, 28F, break up with my boyfriend, 29M, when he consecutively neglects my birthday for 3 years? My boyfriend, 29M, is not contributing at all financially for a year. On the positive side, he gives me time. He goes to my house every weekend. He helps in our house. He is still a student currently because he wants to graduate from college. But I know that he has allowances, and I pay him when he works for me. We have a small family business. I feel sad that I always pay whenever we go out. Even buy him clothes. He didn't ask any of this to be given to him, but I did it because I love him. My birthday's coming up, and he doesn't have any plans. I always pay during my birthday. He pays for the food when it's his birthday. For 3 years, no plans, no gifts from him. It even feels like I'm dragging him to go with me on my special day. How can I communicate this? I'm starting to doubt our relationship. Edit, he was working 2 years ago, but stopped because he wants to go to school. Since January 2024, I was the one paying everything, even if he doesn't want to. He has a part-time job as a technician, but only during weekends. He also works for me once a month. It was just a small wage that all of them goes to him and his motorcycle since it's his mode of transport. About special occasions. We celebrate Valentine's Day at restaurants. When he was working, this year, we didn't go anywhere. Christmas, we don't celebrate it together. Anniversaries. On our first year, he gave me money to buy what I want. Second year, I gave him gifts, but he didn't give any. Third year will be this December. My takeaway here is he's going to be in college for the next 4 years, and I don't know if I can keep up or just break up. Also, guys, he's helping the house because my dad died 6 months ago. It's pretty tough for me. I just realized it's not about my birthdays anymore. It's more like a financial stability thing. I'm lost and confused. Stories number 11. Brother stole my identity and opened credit cards in my name. The card companies say I owe about $10,000, and my brother's response to all of this was just, lol. My brother has been addicted to meth for years, bouncing around between houses, jail, and homelessness. We've tried getting him into rehab multiple times, and he just doesn't want it. A few months ago, it seemed like he was starting to get a modicum of stability in his life when he got an apartment. He also got a job, but we heard he was still using. For the first time ever, he seemed open to the idea of rehab. Turns out, he asked our parents for old tax returns for what he said was a housing assistance program, which had all of our family's social security numbers on it. He opened a grand total of 8 credit cards between me, my parents, and siblings. That's how he got the money for an apartment, but basically blew everything on drugs, booze, and living expenses for a couple of months. We found out about this last week when my mom got a collection letter in the mail. I texted him, ripping into him, and he responded, lol. What do we need to do other than make a police report? I know I should have been watching my credit better, but it's not something I usually think about. Stories number 12. Mom's keeping dad's personal assets after suicide. Yes, I have included the state or country in the post. My mom was divorcing my dad this year. They've been together 40 years. In total, their estate is worth about $2.7 million. Dad had a rental property worth about $750K and bank account $140K in his name only. He did not want my mom to have his property per the divorce. Mom stood to gain half of everything out of the divorce per Colorado law. My dad killed himself before mediation because he did not want to go through the divorce. My dad did not leave a will. My mom told my sister and I many things after he died. I'm 34, and my sister is 39. She said that Dad had told her he wanted to be buried. So she said she wanted to protect us kids. She said she'd pay for the burial and funeral, but she saw the $20K bill and backed out and said she'd only pay for a basic cremation and service. She told my sister and I that she'd give us his rental property, but she wanted the bank account. She also told my sister and I she would give us his truck. My dad's parents bought him this truck 3 years ago for $38K. She told my sister and I that we could choose what happened to his personal belongings in the basement. He had built model planes from scratch and had tools and whatnot, but my mom went back on everything, said she is going to keep everything. She even sold his planes for $5K when my dad specifically told me if anything ever happened to him that he'd want his planes to go to his friends. My mom and my grandma, Dad's mom, hate each other. My grandparents and sister were ready to sue her for unjust enrichment. I tried settling this. I told my mom I'd give her 90% of my share of that rental property if she'd just settle with our original agreement. The one she came up with, which is she pays for the funeral, gives my sister and I the truck and his rental property. My mom basically told me to go to hell. She never even went to his funeral. Her reason was because she wanted to avoid my grandma. I told her I would be there to support her, and nothing would happen. But she never showed. She even asked me to give my dad a kiss for her. My sister had filed for PR shortly after my mom backed out of paying for the funeral. This set my mom into an uproar. My sister had dropped the case for being PR but has requested my mom pay her back for the funeral. My mom hasn't even done that yet. My mom is the PR and has blocked me. Probate should end on January 20th. I don't think my grandparents will sue her because they are almost 90 years old and Grandpa lost his hearing after Dad died. But they do have a decent case. My sister has my dad's divorce papers stating he didn't want my mom to have his assets only in his name. Sister and I don't have much energy or desire to take on anything legally either. Does anyone have any suggestions? We are about to just let this go and take a big fat L all around, losing both our parents essentially. It is sad all around for me because my family has always been so dysfunctional. But at the end of the day, we all do love each other, minus my grandma and mom. So now everyone is so hurt, and obviously the money is causing issues. Any suggestions? Stories number 13. Am I the asshole for getting my ex-wife and children uninvited from a Halloween party? So my 37-year ex-wife, 35F, have been divorced for 6 years and have 2 kids together under 10. The divorce was not unusual, but a pattern emerged during that time where it seemed like my ex would try to intrude into my business whenever possible. Her boundaries are not good, or rather, her willingness to respect my boundaries. Some limited examples include, I kept the home, but even after moving across the city, she felt entitled to enter my home whenever she wanted. She created fake social media accounts to try and keep tabs on me, and freaked out on me several times when I started dating, despite being in a relationship with her affair partner. As a result, I decided to do everything I could to avoid any crossover in our lives other than the children. I stopped talking to mutual friends and built my own network of friends that she doesn't know. It's been great for my mental health. Many of my friends live in my neighborhood, but my ex didn't know them when she lived here. She has interacted with them briefly at school events because my kids are friends with their kids as well. When my friends have asked about her, I keep the information limited and not share the extent to which she made my life difficult during our marriage. So, recently, my ex took my oldest to a birthday party for one of my friend's kids. Apparently, during that party, the moms were talking about our Halloween party coming up around my ex. I don't have my kids this year, but I go every year. According to my ex, she was invited to bring the kids, and according to my friends, she invited herself via text after the birthday party. The truth is, probably somewhere in between. Nonetheless, two of the wives told me about it the next time I saw them, literally hours after seeing my ex at an event for our kids. They were apologetic and said they weren't sure how it happened and were asking if I was okay with that. I told them that I need her to not be there and that I'd offer to have the kids and bring them to the party if she wanted. My friends were understanding and said they'd support me however I needed. I told them I'd make it about me, not them. Not surprisingly, my ex didn't go for it and was insistent that she was going. This led to a contentious back and forth where she accused me of trying to control her, demanding that if I wanted her to not come, I needed to call her, where she usually tries to steamroll me, and claiming that I was violating her boundaries by talking about her with my friends. She's also insistent that she's allowed to be friends with anyone she wants, and I can't stop her from being friend with these people. I finally ended it by telling her that she had been uninvited and I was the one communicating it on behalf of my friends. She then told my kids that I uninvited her from the party and they were mad at me for a few days. So, am I the asshole? Stories number 14. My best friend got naked in front of my husband. Do I call her out? Advice needed. First-time poster, but I've been furious about this information and don't know what to do about it. My husband told me this week that my best friend came on to him while I was in the shower. He was wearing cowboy boots and walking up the stairs of the house we were renting for the Taylor Swift concert. And when he got up to the top of the stairs, she walked out of the room she was in stark naked and just stood there. He said, "Excuse me," friend's name, and walked past her. When he did, she just smiled at him and turned around and walked into whatever room she came out of. A couple things to note. This happened over a year ago. My husband didn't tell me because we were out of state and he knew I would have left her ass there if I would have found out. It also would have ruined the entire weekend. I got pregnant very shortly after this and had a very scary and stressful pregnancy. He said he didn't want to add any more stress in my life. My friend has been dating a married man for about 3 years, even though she swore she didn't know he was still married, even though we all knew based on how he acted with her. My husband has never liked this girl. She cheated on his best friend multiple times with the married man that she's still dating. We were all stone cold sober, so this isn't just, oh shit, I got really drunk and acted stupid behavior. We stopped talking and hanging out when I got pregnant because I was really sick and in the hospital a lot. Her life is also just kind of a shit show, and I couldn't handle the chaos that comes with it. That's why my husband felt comfortable telling me now that I've delivered when her name got brought up in conversation. But she just texted me saying she loves and misses me, and I don't know how to handle it. Should I just ghost her or call her out? Edit. Wow, didn't expect this much traction. Addressing some comments. The boots comment was a point to reiterate. He was being loud, and she could hear him. They're also not gross work boots as we are city people and he just likes how they look. Lol. Her dating the married guy, I give her some grace on it. I had seen his texts to her and met him once. He had convinced her he was divorced, made up emails from his lawyer and sent them to her, and I saw those with my own eyes. She didn't find out from his mouth until 2 months after the concert, when I guess someone found a pic of them still together and showed her, and he couldn't lie his way out of it. She said she would stop seeing him, and the last time I saw her, I laid into her about how it's official now, and she needs to stop, even though the signs were there that he was still with her. And I would constantly tell her that. I don't even know if she's still technically with him, but I have tried to look up his wife on social media, but I don't know her name. And he doesn't have any social media, so I can't her. I even tried looking for his siblings and parents to find her that way. She claims she messaged her, but I don't know what to believe. In regard to her cheating on my husband's friend, It's not like I was immediately okay and friends with her after their split. The friendship was fractured for sure, and my husband did not like even being in the same room with her. He never saw her for more than 10 minutes after this, even when she was over and he was home. And I'm also still friends with his friend, and he knows we hang out, but he knows she still was my friend before. When it comes to my husband, I know you all act like he's this bad guy for this, but he's not confrontational, and it was a bad situation for him. If genders were reversed, more of you would be screaming, he's traumatized from the sexual assault, and give him grace. When he told me, I could feel the anger coming off him still, and it's been a year. In his eyes, we stopped hanging out, and the situation fixed itself. I'm not worried about his suspicious behavior, because to me, he was handling it the best he could without trying to utterly destroy me. Also, I feel like I didn't make it clear, but a lot of you are asking why I would want to stay friends with after this. There's no question that I don't, especially after all the other shitty things she's done that I thought she'd eventually grow up and stop doing. I tried to get her to go to therapy to get a backbone so she would stop putting her worth in men. And she went once, then never went back. I'm not trying to figure out if I need to stay friends with her. I just want to know if I should even bring it up to her or just ghost. Stories number 15. Stories 25mm, girlfriend 25F, has given up on her career after I became a millionaire. How do I tell her this won't work out? Backstory. I met my girlfriend Kylie in community college 7 years ago. We became really close friends and started dating 2 years later. At the time, she wanted to be a nurse, which was great. She was really passionate about it, and I fully supported her. I ended up transferring to a 4-year university and earning my MBA. Kylie supported me emotionally the entire time through school, which I'm grateful for. Kylie's parents ended up cutting her off financially because of her spending habits. She ended up taking a year off to work to help her with her bills. In the meantime, I invested all my savings, time, and energy into a startup platform with my best friend in the automotive industry. Earlier this year, we were bought out for a life-changing amount of money. We were both kept on as consultants with a high-paying salary as well. Kylie had kept her job at the jewelry store this entire time. After the buyout, she told me she was handing her 2 weeks in. I offered to pay for her school and expenses. At first, she was excited to go back and earn her nursing degree. I ended up purchasing a condo for us to live in. Big step up from our apartment close to her school. Over the weekend, we were talking, and she threw out the fact that she wasn't sure about wanting to go back to school, and that she could be a stay-at-home wife. We're not married. I didn't say anything in the moment, because I wasn't sure on how to respond. Part of what attracted me to her in the first place was her ambition. It just doesn't sit right with me that she quit her job and career goals after I came into money. Her shopping spending has also gone up. She's been looking at new cars. I could be overreacting, but something just doesn't seem right. I still love her and want it to work out, but I don't like this new side of her I'm seeing. Thanks in advance. Stories number 16. I, 35mm, was incarcerated and lost touch with 33F. It's been over 10 years. Would it be wrong to contact her? When I was a university student, I fell in love with Daria. Not her real name, obviously. She was the little sister of my best friend, so I considered her off limits, but my crush on her persisted and grew. She's one of those beautiful, brilliant people who is alive and breathing to make the world a better place. How could I not be drawn to that? One day she told me she had feelings for me. And to my relief, my best friend didn't have a problem with me dating his sister, either. So for 2 wonderful years, Daria was my girlfriend. I should have asked her to marry me. I don't know why I didn't. I suppose I thought I had all the time in the world. We were young, and there was no need to rush things. We lived in a country that isn't exactly democratic, and we were political activists. I ended up getting arrested and going to prison for 9 years. Please don't think I'm some kind of monster for this. I don't want to go into detail in case it makes me identifiable somehow, but we didn't hurt anyone or do anything immoral. What we did is not even illegal in the country where I currently live, and our beliefs were far from extremist. I haven't seen or spoken to Daria since the day I got arrested. My best friend died shortly after, and Daria left the country, partly due to the possibility that she'd be arrested too. There wasn't any way for her to contact me while I was in prison, though apparently she contacted my dad a few times in the beginning. Things got even worse in our country while I was incarcerated, so my dad and I emigrated when I was released. We've been living in Western Europe ever since, and life is pretty okay. I live with my dad, and I have a steady if shitty job. Months ago, I found Daria online. She lives in a neighboring country, 7 hours away by rail. She doesn't use social media too much, but from what I've seen there's no evidence of a partner or kids. And even if she's married, I'd be content just to be her friend, as I was for the first years we knew each other. Part of me desperately wants to reach out to her, and my dad has been encouraging me to do so, but I feel like it'd be too selfish. The circumstances of her brother's death were very traumatic for her, and I'm afraid that I'm just a living reminder of all the bad things that happened to us. And if she does have a partner, would my contacting her offend him and trouble their relationship? I don't want to cause her any more sadness. Time stood still for me while I was in prison, but I know it didn't for her or anyone else. She's done so well for herself. She's built a whole life, and I don't want to derail that life just because I feel entitled to a place in it. She might not even remember me at all. And even if she did invite me back into her life, I'd be nothing but a burden now, owing to my wrecked mental health. We've been apart twice as long as I knew her. Have I even the right to miss her as much as I do? For now, I've contented myself with Googling her name every so often and seeing that she's okay. It just hurts a lot, and I don't know how to make it not hurt. I still love her with everything I have. I probably always will. Should I reach out to her or leave her alone? If I do contact her, what should I even say? TLDR. Unsure whether I should contact my old girlfriend now that I'm free from prison. Update. Jan 26, 2023. The short version is that I was wondering whether I should try to contact my former girlfriend after I went to prison for a long time. The consensus was that I should, and people gave very good advice on how to do that. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who offered advice or kind words. I had spent so long feeling ashamed about my situation and expecting most people to react very negatively if they knew. I had barely discussed it with anyone before, except my dad and people whose job it is to help me, lawyers, therapists, etc. And I was very surprised to be met with so much compassion from a bunch of complete strangers. Thank you, truly. Several people asked for an update, and that's the least I can do in return. I sent Daria a message the evening after I made my post. It was something like, I don't mean to intrude, but I wanted to say hello and thought I would give you my new contact information in case you ever felt like getting in touch. If not, that's completely fine too. I left her my mobile number and email address, wished her well, and that was that. I knew it might be a while before she responded, if she responded at all. So I tried to put it out of my mind. Early Monday morning, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number from the country where Daria lives. Who else would ever be calling me from there? I panicked a little bit, but I managed to answer in time. She asked a few times if it was really me, and I couldn't tell if she was laughing or crying. At first she called me by the very affectionate version of my name she used to. But then she quickly apologized and corrected herself, which broke my heart a little bit. It was an awkward phone call, but not in a bad way. I was extremely nervous, and it seemed like she was too, but happy also. Some of you mentioned that Daria would want to know that I was safe, and this was more true than I could have guessed. Because unrest in my country increased a lot during the last year I was in prison, she was afraid that they would decide to quietly kill me rather than let me go. There are documented cases of other prisoners like me having met very suspicious ends in the months before my release, so it wasn't a totally unreasonable worry. She also said she repeatedly tried to send me parcels of supplies and put money on my commissary account, but her attempts were rejected without explanation. After my sentencing, I was not allowed to receive correspondence or to have a commissary account at all, because of the classification of my crimes, so she was forced to give up. She told me this as an apology, as if I would have been disappointed with her for not helping me more. I had no idea she had done any of that. I do know that it was not a safe thing for her to do, and I feel terrible that she put herself at risk trying to make me a little more comfortable. She didn't seem to want to talk about what happened any more than that, and so we didn't. We changed the subject to more lighthearted things, our jobs, the cities where we live, how my dad is adapting to a new country, etc. When she arrived at work and had to end the phone call, she asked if I wanted to continue talking through a messaging app. Obviously I said yes, and downloaded it immediately. We sent messages throughout the day, and she even interrupted her commute home to send me a picture of a restaurant modeled after one of my favorite books, just because she thought I would like it. She told me that she thought of me every time she saw it, but unfortunately the restaurant itself was not so good. I was afraid she wouldn't remember me, but she even remembers the things I like to read. She remembers a lot of little things, even stuff I forgot. We have been sending messages back and forth ever since, and talking on the phone after I finish work at night until she gets too sleepy. Sometimes it feels like I'm 24 and she's texting me from a few blocks away, as if the next thing she might ask is what's for dinner. Other times it seems like we're trying to will dead versions of ourselves back to life in order to avoid acknowledging what we've lost. She seems a lot more timid than she used to, more passive, which I suppose makes sense. Sometimes I worry about how much I've changed and that maybe she won't find anything left in me that's worthy of her. But if I could express in words what it feels like to hear her laugh, I could explain that there's also a lot that we know very well. She hasn't lost her kindness or her warmth or her empathy. She still cares about me, and I still care about her. I know that rebuilding a friendship after all that's happened will take lots of patience, and I have plenty to spare. I'm just happy to have the chance to get to know her again. This morning, Daria asked if I want to have a video call sometime this weekend. I agreed, but I'm ashamed to admit that as much as I want to see her, I'm very nervous. I look so different than she would remember. My jaw is messed up, and I have the teeth of a hockey player. Fortunately, I will qualify for healthcare insurance soon and be able to have it fixed. I lost weight that I haven't put back on, and I see an old man in the mirror. I'm also worried that I will get very emotional when I see her and embarrass myself that way. I don't really cry in front of people. I'm not used to it, and this doesn't seem like a good occasion to start. Aside from not wanting to appear pitiful, I don't want her to feel forced to comfort me. If anyone has some advice on how to handle this, it would be much appreciated. Overall, this week could not have gone better, and I am extremely grateful to everyone who gave me the little push of courage I needed to send her that message. 1,000 times, thank you. TLDR, I sent a message to my former partner. She was thrilled to receive it, and we have been happily getting to know each other once again. Edit. Just to clarify, she doesn't have a husband or kids. As I said in my first post, I only considered contacting her because there was no evidence of a partner on her social media. But I understand that my first post wasn't visible for a while, so I can see why that may not have been obvious. Sorry for the confusion. Update 2. March 23, 2023. I've had a lot of people ask for an update, so here it is. The last 2 months have gone by very fast. I told Daria that I was nervous about the video call, and she insisted on having it right away so that I could get it over with and stop worrying. Seeing her made everything feel real in a way it hadn't before. She still looks like herself, or even more beautiful, different, only in the sense that she is fully an adult now. The place she lives is very different from our home country, with a distinct culture to which she has assimilated. That she had time to adapt and feel completely at home in this place broke the illusion that no time had passed. In hindsight, that was probably the real reason I had been so nervous, because I could no longer occasionally forget myself and pretend that nothing had changed. The hardest part was not being able to reach through the screen and put my arms around her. Sitting there and watching someone you love cry from a distance is not easy. I barely noticed that I was crying too. She didn't seem surprised at my appearance, but she did eventually look me over and ask if the food was shit where I lived. I explained about my jaw and that I'm getting it fixed. Less dental work is required than I thought, but I need a surgery. Her response was to ask for my address and order groceries to be delivered, including a lot of soft snacks that are easy to eat, and these meal substitution drinks that are actually tasty. She sent them every week since, even though I tell her it's not necessary. When I wanted to pay her back, she laughed at me and said she owed me a lot of food, because I had kept her from starving to death in university. I loved being able to cook for her. And I suppose it makes her just as happy to feed me now. We talk every day, and have made video calls a regular habit. It does me so much good just to see her face, and the awkwardness is mostly gone now. It's easy to talk to her. Last night, she brought her computer into the kitchen and talked to me while doing the washing up. It's amazing how mundane things like that can make me feel normal, and at home, in ways I forgot I could. I never thought I'd be that stupidly happy to see someone washing coffee cups. I'm beginning to think that the idea of home as a physical place is a misconception. She likes to send photos, to show me where she lives, what her life is like now. She was curious about how things are the same or different here. I didn't want to admit that I don't have much of a life to share back. Going places just didn't seem worth the effort. She is, though. At first it was very small things. She would send a picture of a pastry she'd bought at a cafe, saying that she thinks her city has better pastries than mine. I would go out and get one so I could send her a photo too. Then it was beer. which city has better parks, interesting architecture, a department store, and so on. I figured out quickly that she was trying to coax me into going out more, but I played along to make her happy. I've seen more of my city in the past month than the entire time I've lived here before. I've been to the art museum and finally joined my colleagues for a beer. Usually, I go places for short durations at the less crowded times, but I'm still going, which is something. Daria used to be very sociable, so I thought that whatever happened, at least she wouldn't be lonely. I was wrong. There's a lot she could never tell her friends because they can't relate. They would feel sorry for her and cease to be equals, she says. Our experiences are different, but we are more able to understand each other than other people could. And despite her own burden, she has quietly picked up half the weight from my shoulders without ever being asked to. I am in awe of her, simply for being the kind of person who would. For Women's Day, I sent her some orchids, and she was very happy that I remembered her favorite flower. The things I can do to make her smile are so small, and she deserves so much more than I know how to give her. But I would do anything for this woman. And I am learning. There are protests happening where she is, with riot police and tear gas. Whenever this happens, she feels nervous and has difficulty sleeping. Now, at least, I can stay on the phone with her at night so she's not alone. Aside from the anxiety, there is also a sense of nostalgia. She talks about when that was us, making noise in the street. I'm glad she has good memories too, and doesn't have to be alone with them anymore. Finally, the reason I am updating now, she is coming to visit. We were talking last night, and I mentioned that a church near me has special windows designed by an artist she loves, and I was thinking about going to see them eventually. She said it would be unfair of me to go without her, so I invited her to come with me. And then somehow it turned from vague future plans to being scheduled for next Saturday. She was going to come for the day, but I told her it was silly to travel so far to stay for such a short time, and suggested she stay the entire weekend. So she will be here from Friday until Sunday. I haven't really had time to be nervous yet, but I'm sure I will. Thank you again to everyone who has given advice or encouragement. It is very much appreciated. Stories number 17. After getting married, the wedding caused me to look at my friends differently. Serious. So a little backstory on everything. We got married a few Sundays ago, and it was a nice small wedding. We didn't spend a ton of money on it and had our close friends and family come. Amongst those who showed up was our friends Jack and Amanda. I was a groomsman for Jack earlier this year at a destination wedding that cost me quite a bit to go to. And he was a groomsman for my wedding. I really appreciate and love the guy, and he has his faults, but he's been there for me a lot. Anyways, Jack shows up and gets drunk, which is fine. I don't care. Amanda shows up a little later, and she starts having a meltdown about how drunk he is. So I console her, and everything is fine. After the ceremony, we proceed to the reception, and it's a bit of a shit show because we were running late and had all the drinks, plates, silverware, etc. We finally get everything set up with people in the venue and find out someone was switching people's names for different tables. Still don't know who it is. But alas, it's fine. The rest of the night goes on. Everyone seems to be having fun. Towards the end of the night, one of my friends tells me that some of my guests were saying unkind things about us at our wedding. We find out later it was Amanda, and the way it made it seem is that she and the rest of that table were all bashing us. So basically we said, fuck it, don't need I'm as friends, well, just leave them alone and cut them out. Eventually Jack calls me to check in, and I tell him that we heard Amanda wasn't very kind to us, and he said he would talk to her. A few days later, she calls me late at night and is profusely apologizing. She then proceeds to tell me that she felt horrible about it. She was blackout drunk and no one had told her exactly what happened. She also told me that Jack was physical with her a week prior to the wedding and she had to stay with her mom. I forgave her and told her, it happens, being drunk brings out the worst in us. I also apologized to my other friends who I thought were also bad actors. They didn't know I was mad at them, and they were super apologetic and wished I had reached out sooner. But all this to say, I'm very conflicted about everything. Amanda and Jack as friends. Is Jack actually abusive? I feel badly for thinking the worst of my other friends. But yeah, rant over. Stories number 18. Would I be the asshole if I didn't allow my stepdaughter at my daughter's bad day? Posting for a friend. Would I be the asshole? Me, 32, and my husband, 40M, have been together for 10 years. We have 4 kids. He has 2 from a previous relationship, 20M and 18F. And we have 2 together, 6M and 5F. We have had a rocky relationship with the older 2 due to the fact that there are rules at our house and there are no rules at their mom's house. She has taught them to disrespect us at every turn. At one point, things got so bad they both assaulted my husband. Since then, our oldest, 20 Mimith, is now in the adult world and starting to wake up to why we had rules and why we didn't allow them to simply walk all over us. And our relationship has done a complete 180. He comes over all the time, and his little siblings absolutely adore him. Our daughter, 18F, however, has only gotten worse. She has done nothing but run our names through the mud, even though we help her every time she needs it because her mom can't be bothered by it. She posts horrible things about my husband on social media. She has befriended my husband's ex, not her mother, who literally tried to unalive him and tries to constantly get them in the same room together. Last time we saw her, she promised she'd help and babysit for us so I could go to a dentist appointment. And we paid her for it, and then we haven't seen her since. And I obviously didn't go to my dentist appointment. She also put a girl's phone number out on Snapchat and got the whole school to call her and tell her to go unalive herself. Anyway, she called my husband this morning for the first time since February. From my understanding, she didn't try to apologize and tried to pretend like nothing was ever wrong. And then, my husband told me he invited her to our 5-year-old's birthday party in 2 weeks. Would I be the asshole if I put my foot down and said absolutely not? Our daughter barely even remembers who she is because she has disappeared from our lives so much. I do not want her present in the little ones' lives until she has proven she wants to change and is no longer dangerous. She has hurt them in the past by showing up long enough for them to start forming a bond and then disappearing out of nowhere when she doesn't get her way. I am okay if he wants to mend things with her, but it's going to be a long time before I trust her around the little ones.